please allow me to welcome to the stage the producers of the film, Dede Gardner and Jeremy Kleiner, and then the star of the film, Stephan James. I will add, as they take their seats, KiKi Layne will also be joining us, but she's just running a few seconds late, so let's get right into it. Dede and Jeremy, I'm going to start with you. I know Barry said that he started writing this before he had the rights. He didn't even know if he'd ever get the rights. It was actually an idea in his brain before Moonlight. So how does he then come to you guys and say, so I want you to produce this movie that I don't even know if you're going to make, basically?
Well, I'll try and do this in a short way. We met Barry after Medicine for Melancholy, his first film, and stayed in touch for a few years trying to figure out what he wanted to do. And then, as happens, people get busy and you drift. And then we had an incredible reunion with him at Telluride when we were screening 12 Years a Slave for the very, very, very first audience, and he was the moderator. And it was incredibly comforting to have him do that. It felt like having family sort of wrap his arms around us and say, okay, let's put this movie out in the world. And we said, hi, what have you been doing? What are you doing? And he said, well, I've written these 2 scripts. And one was Beale Street, which he sent us. And we asked, do you have the rights? He said, no. And then he sent us Moonlight, which we read and said, we have to go make this. It's amazing. And strangely, I think in his mind, Beale would have come first. But Moonlight is, I actually believe, the thing that finally cracked open the door with the estate to allow Beale Street to happen. So the universe was at work.
Yeah, no, I think as the first English language adaptation of James Baldwin's work, it's an incredible amount of trust that they place both with you guys and then also with Barry. Stephan, I do have to ask you, because at this point we started at TIFF, and now this is the opening weekend of its limited release, but you had a moment to get sort of the reactions from the film from an audience perspective, and I was just curious at this point, what has been one of those reactions from the film that has most surprised you about it?
I think that, to me, I love doing Q&As and going to the receptions afterwards, because I just feel like everybody, takes a different part of this film and internalizes it and has a personal connection with this, a certain aspect of it. So to me, I think it's really cool to just hear stories about, for some people, this is like their real lives. These were their parents or these were them at some point in time, and to just hear how it affects everybody in such a unique sort of way has been, it's been incredible. I think it's why we do what we do.
Jeremy, I'm going to bring it to you, and Dede, feel free to chime in. I think it's always this thing with producers, the directors and the writers come up with this vision, and then the producers have to magic it into happening. And I know early on, Barry wanted this to be shot in Harlem. He wanted to have that feel of sort of Baldwin around it. But that's not always the easiest thing on an independent film in a limited time and a limited budget. So just talk about how you guys were able to sort of, secure all that needed to happen to bring that aspect of filming it in New York to realization.
Yeah, to be honest, Barry leads and we follow. That's just the truth of the matter. He's a master. He's one of the great directors walking this planet Earth, and for us, it's like a sacred process to be part of it with him. As it was with Stephan. This is our second movie working with Stephan as well. I think that there were some, so I can't say we, cracked the safe or something. There were some choices, but one example, for instance, the production designer of this film is a guy named Mark Friedberg that actually did Selma, which Stephan played John Lewis in, and we worked on. And that was give it up. Give it up. And actually, it was our experience with Mark on that film that made us think that he could be somebody that would be really great to do the production design. He's a New Yorker. He grew up in and around the period of the film. He has impeccable taste, and he was so passionate. So when we first approached him, he ended up, I think it was on Father's Day, Barry had 46 minutes in New York, and he went to meet him, and they met and for the first time, and that began a process of architecting how it could be that we could pull the film off there. The period exteriors of this film they're not that many that are readily available. Somebody at one point suggested going to Philadelphia to shoot period Harlem. Mark and Barry wanted to do it in New York, and this Mark is that kind of production designer that it wasn't like we'll find one of those streets. He's like, it's on that street. And then there's a story that we often tell about the 138th and Edgecombe, the brownstone that was the Rivers apartment where the two families have that incredibly memorable scene. That was a case of a brownstone that was about to be flipped. We got in there at the right time, and Mark, under Barry's direction, built this kind of very safe space, a place where there's, as Dede likes to say, a home in which there's no shame, a home filled with love, that was also not unrealistic to the period. And those are just a couple of anecdotes where maybe one relationship we had led to 6 other positive things. But Barry leads and we follow.
That's excellently said. And then, Stephan, I want to bring back to you. I think with this kind of film, I mean, you've been on other movie sets, and especially Selma is one of those ones where when you're making a movie, I know it's just you're trying to get through the day, you're trying to make sure you get the shots, you're trying to just make sure you bring authenticity to these characters. But was there a moment filming on set where you kind of had to take a step back and say, okay, wow, this is different. This is a moment. I've got to mark this memory down because this is James Baldwin. This is Barry Jenkins, and we're kind of creating something special.
I think that day happened day one. I think even before stepping foot on this set, you just kind of get the feeling like this is the first time James Baldwin is being adapted in the English language ever. What my comic just figured. He's Shakespearean in a way. He's our version of Shakespeare, and to be able to adapt him with obviously Barry Jenkins, that type of a marriage to me is just that had me so excited to dive into something like this. So I think every day we realized just how special the material was, and we all sort of respected. We held the work with high regard. Knowing sort of what was at stake.
Oh, I appreciate that. I wish your partner in crime was here because I really want to ask her about this one scene because I know from previous conversations she has a great one, so now it's up to you. I'm sorry, you got to do it. There's a scene in the film, and it's the one I think that's only second to the family scene that you guys mentioned earlier, and that's the scene with Brian Tyree Henry, where you guys are around the pseudo dinner table, and he's kind of telling us.
Look who just walked in, girl. Say hi to Belle.
Everyone, please allow me to welcome our Tish, Miss KiKi Layne. Literally 2 seconds ago, I was like, oh man, I wish your partner in crime was here, and in you walk. Okay, so as I was just saying, I think the scene that I really resonate with, and the one that I think is only second to the two families coming together, is the scene with you guys and Brian Tyree Henry around the pseudo bathtub dinner table. And it's a scene where when you look at it, it just seems so natural, so seamless. But I know that that's something that's technically difficult, both from the actor's standpoint and what Barry had to do with the camera, and the three of you, what y'all had to do. And I mean, that's a very long take in a lot of it. So you guys just walk me through how that ballet of sort of camera work and your acting came together.
Well, I'll just speak on it quickly. Brian Tyree came in for one day. That was his only day on set. And I mean, he's a beast. He's a beast. But yeah, there was just something about, Brian. I think that he's the biggest Baldwin fan in the world. And so he came to the project just as ready as any one of us. And to be able to just share a moment like that with him on screen, I think it's just a powerful moment between two brothers, black men, that you don't really get to see too often. Displaying a level of vulnerability, of openness, of these two young men who have been criminalized, in a world where there's so many, chips stacked against them, and they're able to lean on each other, to confide in each other. And to me, that this moment is so important for the film, because we're showing young men, what it looks like to love our brothers, and to lean on our brothers. And it's just such a positive thing, I believe, for the psyche of young men in general, to know that we can look like this and we can act like this and feel like this with each other. Just technically speaking on the scene, there was just so much happening energetically. And, originally Barry had started shooting the scene, as typically one would shoot it, sort of just two cameras, one's at me, one's at Ryan. And I think he realized that energetically there was so much happening that he didn't want to have to break the scene. So after doing the scene for like 2.5 hours, Barry was finally like, oh, you know what, guys, I'm gonna take away one of the cameras. So he kicks out one of the cameras, and now it's only one camera just bouncing back and forth to me and Brian Tyree Henry, just back and forth, transferring sort of the energies. And to me, that's pretty much what that scene was about. It was just like this unbroken bond of like giving and taking, giving and receiving. And yeah, so just a special thing. I hadn't really even realized it until after I was, after I had seen it, after I had seen the film already completely, like, gee, that's only one camera going back and forth. But yeah, so it's a big credit to Barry.
KiKi, when you come and jump into the scene, it's beautiful because that's where Nick's score just sort of takes it over, and it just becomes this like emotional moment. And I'm always curious, what are you guys actually saying in that moment? Because sometimes I know for a fact, like the directors just let the camera roll in between and you don't know it. So what was that non-verbal dialogue, or what were you guys doing when the score sort of just takes over in that scene?
So we're at the table.
Yeah.
We were just cracking jokes. Like, we really were just around the table. I feel like Brian was eating most of the food. We had real food. It was real food. I was like, but no, it was just a real family moment. I don't know, we really were just loving on each other and cracking jokes. Yeah, that's really what that moment was.
KiKi, I'm going to bring it back to you because I think with this film, having Tish be sort of like the narrator and also sort of like everything comes through her, it's like a blessing and a curse. I know you said it's like great when you read the book because it's like, it's all from my perspective. But what if you can kind of tell me from your time with the character that you particularly, I guess, every actor, when they think about the character, there's something that they really sort of resonate with. What about Tish as a character do you like lead with? What is the part of her that you really sort of admire?
I think the biggest thing I took from Tish is how strong she is because of how vulnerable she is. I think I had an idea of strength that just wasn't in alignment with that, and to me, coming into it, vulnerability didn't represent strength, and so that was one of the things that I kind of had to, I felt there was the biggest difference between Tish and myself, but once I found that, I realized how beautiful it is that, even in these circumstances where I feel like, growing up that way or, going through these types of things, it can harden you, and take away some of that, kindness and that gentleness that you may have. And I thought that was such a beautiful thing that Tish never lost that. And that is where her strength and her power came from. And I realized that I hadn't seen an image of a strong Black woman that looked like that. And so once I actually received the film, I realized, how important it was that, this strong Black woman didn't fall into the same, mold or categories that we've seen time and time again, represented in TV and film. But yeah, the vulnerability was the biggest thing that I, definitely took away from playing Tish.
Very well said, especially the part about a Black woman that looks like that. Because the melanin in this film, if you guys just don't know, it just jumps off the screen. Dede and Jeremy, let's be honest, Plan B has become synonymous with excellence, and you guys have an incredible body of work. work that you and the entire team have put together, to the point where you have, films going at it this award season against each other, like, fighting against your children. But I want to ask you guys as producers, because of where you are, because of, again, that great body of work, what is the thing that you use as the guide for what, stories you guys want to tell next? And what's the litmus test?
First of all, thank you for your kindness. We're very grateful. I wish I could explain it. It's what I can tell you is it's internally driven. We're both readers. We should probably be living in like the 8th floor underground of a Stacks of a library someplace. But somehow we're in Hollywood. We love we love stories, and we also consider it a tremendous privilege that we get to tell them. So I think we are exacting from that attitude, meaning if you are this lucky to do what we do, then you had best make a good time of it, and you had best spend your time and your energy and ask for other people's money to tell stories that aren't out there, that have not been told, that have been ignored, that have been swept under the carpet. I can't imagine not meeting the privilege with that kind of rigor.
I would just add to, and I think it grows out of what Dede was saying. I feel like we're drawn to the strength of another artist's vision, and when that vision is very strong, trying to somehow align oneself behind like getting it through or pushing it through or even nudging it through, whatever the word is. And I think the vision of James Baldwin is so strong, and the vision of Barry Jenkins is so strong that in a weird way, when you encounter those things, it's almost like not optional. You end up, if you're receptive to that and on that frequency, you feel obliged to pursue it. It was funny, I was just on Baldwin, I was doing some more research today, trying to think about where he was when he was writing this book. Thinking about the timeliness, the urgency of the things that Stephan's been talking about and KiKi's been talking about, this seeming rarity of representation of something that oughtn't be rare, and why that is. And that actually, when he was writing this, actually there was a mythology being built about, how the African American family was this, pathological, entity, right? And Baldwin's vision is so not that, right? It's so counter to that, and so presenting a family that is so full of love, full of nourishment, full of caring, such a model in a way for resilience and for intergenerational love and so many positive values. When those visions present themselves, you're so lucky to be a part of somehow going with them.
Incredibly well said. I'm going to ask a couple more questions and then I'll throw it to you guys. Again, everyone up here spent several months to years in cases bringing this film to the screen, so please ask them about it. They have tons of stories that I could barely scratch the surface with on my questions. So before we get there, I'm going to ask this to you, KiKi, and you, Stephan. Stephan, I know you're kicking it with Julia Roberts on Homecoming. Congratulations on the award up there. And just this cast alone, I'm sure you guys had fangirl moments with each other, but as you approach this season, and it looks like y'all gonna have a long season, is there anybody you are looking forward to maybe fangirl out that you might reach? Any of these films that are being talked about where you're like, all right, if I can get a minute alone with Timothée Chalamet. That's just kidding. Who are you guys looking forward to interacting along this ride?
I would love to meet Angela Bassett.
Yes.
Jeez, it's a little tough. Viola Davis, Widows is gonna stay.
Yes.
I think that'd be really cool. I love Steve McQueen as well. So think probably them too.
I mean, they know him. Just kidding. All right, let me talk.
Do we get to answer?
Yeah, I'm sure you knew everybody, honestly. Is there anyone you haven't met yet?
Plenty of people, but that was a joke. No one really cares who.
Oh. I can't now. I want the answer now. This whole audience wants the answer now, Jeremy.
Frank Ocean.
Frank Ocean. Oh, that's a great answer. Dede, you got anybody? If she says Kendall Lamar, I'm like, this is it.
Well, that'd be fun. No, I'm just gonna see what happens.
Okay. I'm gonna throw it out to the audience. Does anyone have a question? Stand up and I'll. Okay, right here.
Well, I wanted to talk to KiKi about her wardrobe because I thought the period clothing was just amazing. Can you talk about, what your favorite outfit might have been in the film?
For those of you that didn't hear, she wanted to ask KiKi about the wardrobe and the setting and the period wardrobe.
Our costume designer, Carolyn, is so great and just so attentive to detail. She paid attention to things like, okay, this isn't a family that has that much money. So you'll see like a lot of the costumes repeating itself. You'll see that, a lot of my wardrobe doesn't fit, Hollywood perfect, because it's probably, hand-me-downs from my sister Ernestine. And so her attention to detail really helped me to, I didn't grow up in the early 1970s. So a lot of this world I'm like imagining for myself, but the costumes were such an important thing that was tangible that I could, really grab a hold of as I'm trying to build this imaginary world. And, the difference of what it's like, for me, KiKi, I primarily wear jeans versus someone who is primarily in skirts, so helping me to develop my character in that way too. But my favorite costume, I think it's the blue outfit, like the blue top with the white and blue skirt. Because that was also, the first part of that day was fun. Because that's also the day we were running songs ago. Anyway, but when we were running through the streets and screaming, it was amazing. But yeah, I think that and the yellow. Yeah. Okay, I'm like, ooh. That yellow is fierce. Let's talk about it. Okay, great.
KiKi, you're a phenomenal actress. I love you. I wanted to ask you, what did it feel like to play the daughter of Regina King?
Okay, so for those of you that didn't hear, sitting in front line, from KiKi what it was like to play Regina King's daughter.
It was amazing. I still remember when I found out that she was cast as my mom. Jeremy actually told me at a pre-Emmy party, and he so casually did it. He's like, oh yeah, we casted your parents. Well, okay, cool. Like, who is it? It's Coleman Domingo, he's gonna be your dad, and Regina King, that's gonna be your mom. And then he just walked off. And I was like, oh, what do I do? And I'm just standing there looking lost, and then my manager handed me a glass of champagne. It's a real manager. But no, working with Regina I feel like it was so necessary for me to work with her, at the beginning of my career because, I took so much away from working with her, but the most important thing I took away is that no matter how much success I find, no matter how big my name gets, that I can still be a genuine, down-to-earth person and remain true to myself. And I think that was something that I needed to see at the beginning of my career, because we've seen it. People really get lost in Hollywood. This industry can really, take over and change, who you are. And so that was the most important thing that I took away from working with Regina.
I have time for one more, and I'm actually going to go to the back right over there. Right in the blue. Yes, you, sir.
I just want to say thank you for the film. It's beautiful. But my question is, what was the hardest scene? Not the hardest scene. What scene do you miss in the sense that it's an adaptation? So what scene was not included that you wish was in the film?
Okay. Although your voice was great, I'm still going to repeat it. If you wanted to know, since this is an adaptation, which scene from the book would you like to have seen on the screen?
Well, yeah, obviously, it takes like 20 hours to read the book and 2 hours to watch the film. So you can't fit everything from the novel into the screenplay. What was actually originally in the screenplay that didn't even get to make it to the film was this scene where Fonnie brings Tish home and asks for her hand in marriage. He tells Mr. Rivers that he's gonna marry his daughter, and to me, I kind of missed that scene, and Barry and I argued about it for a little bit. But he gets final say at the end of the day, he's Barry Jenkins and all. So we talked about it, but I think that there's a lot that there's this love and this sort of like balancing act that Fonnie has in this scene where he's trying to, it's a scary thing for him to ask for this girl's hand in marriage, but he wants to be a man and show, the Rivers that he's ready for this. And, to me, Barry says a lot that it's not always going to make it into the film, but it can make it into the performances and sort of the feelings and the emotions. So this love and this fight that Fonnie was willing to put up, I think became evident, even though that scene wasn't in there. But that's probably the scene that I wish was in the film.
What about you?
Yeah, I agree. I agree with that one. I was like, oh, that was a good scene. That was real good, we did it. I agree.
Well, on that note, I want to thank you all for sticking around for the Q&A.